welcome back to another episode of Bone Apple Tea. Today, we have a great guest. I mean, they're all great, but
they're all great.
I had a particularly fun time with this one because I learned a ton. But Ratish Sekhar, so he is a film, I guess, producer, director, writer,
musician,
camera op, musician, singer, songwriter, all of the above. Very talented guy, very well educated man, has a very well spoken,
great voice,
very thoughtful answers to a lot of the questions. Yeah, fantastic voice, actually, extremely good singer. Anyways, so we went through, basically his film coming out, which is Checkmate, and it is a American slash
Malayalam.
Malayalam or Mollywood film. So a lot of people,
not to be confused with Bollywood.
Not to be confused with Bollywood, Tollywood, Collywood. Apparently, there's a number of them.
There's a lot of woods.
But there's a whole forest in India of film studios. But anyways, I think the episode is great from a variety of perspectives. I mean, he goes through the entire kind of Indian film industry, how it works over there. Gives a lot of perspective on Indian versus American films and kind of what the driving force behind him coming up with the idea of the movie and actually implementing it. It's he delves into what the scene is like in Kerala, which is where Malayalam is spoke and where he's from. It's very different. And the challenges associated with getting an Indian film here and over there versus, an American film and counter to what the general idea is of an Indian film, because everybody thinks kind of Bollywood. So it was a really good conversation. It's funny, I was tired before going in, and thank God we ended up taking those little shots there because
it
definitely
I have mine right now.
Put me in the zone.
Hold, here we go.
Oh, you slamming it? All right. Dude, I will say, not to harp on it, but
no. Magic Mind's great, dude. You got that sharper mind, lower stress, better energy.
No, I'm a big Lion's Mane guy, and
Lion's Mane, rodeo. Holy crap, that was thunder.
Definitely pairs well with coffee. I did slam a coffee, and I was kind of jittery, but you get a little bit of theanine with the Magic Mind as well, so it does help with the nice little. It smooths it out a bit. Some Lion's Mane.
Yeah, and you'd be surprised too. I feel like not a lot of people have tried something that has L-theanine in it that pairs well with caffeine. They don't know that, but it actually is a really great pairing. And in fact, matcha itself has a little bit of caffeine in it, and it naturally has some L-theanine, which is why sometimes people really like matcha. So Magic Mind is a way to sort of boost your coffee if you're really feeling it. And wouldn't you get this? We got a little discount code for you. So you have a limited time offer. You can now get up to 48% off your first subscription or 20% off one-time purchase with code BoneAppleT20 at checkout. And to claim that, let's go to magicmind.com/BoneAppleT20. Again, magicmind.com/BoneAppleT20, and make sure to use that code BoneAppleT20 at checkout.
And real quick, August 8th is when Checkmate premieres. So #Checkmate movie on Instagram, #Checkmate, etc.
Let's go.
You'll see us posting about it. And anyways, this is a really good conversation, so enjoy.
Ratish, welcome to the show, man. It's really glad to have you.
Thanks for having me.
So it's crazy because Checkmate, man.
Checkmate.
Now, for those who don't know what Checkmate is, we'll start there.
Well, Checkmate, I would say, is the first Indian-American produced film, at least in the New England area, and I'm guessing North America, in the language Malayalam. So Malayalam is a language that's spoken in Kerala of India. It's a state in India, like how Connecticut is a state of United States.
Right.
That sort of a thing. So that's really the unique selling point for the project Checkmate.
Oh yeah, and for those that don't know, how are you related to the project? Because obviously, I know you're the director and creator and all that, but
right. So I wrote the film, story, screenplay. I did the music as well as cinematography and direction.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty nuts. I mean, and at least I remember the days on set. It looked pretty crazy, pretty professional for the fact that you were wearing so many hats, So, but actually, the language thing I did want to ask, because I think that's interesting. So, are there not many films? I know there's tons of dialects or different languages, I guess I should say, in India. Like how popular is that language in particular? Are there not a lot of films shot in that?
Well, when you talk about India, right, 28 states as of 2024, could be more or less going forward. We don't know. So 28 states, about, I would say primarily when we talk about films, about 14, 15 major film industry, Bollywood being, I would say, one of the biggest, not by quality,
right,
by scale.
Yeah. That'd be the one that, like, if you're an American and you hear about Indian film, they're like, oh, Bollywood. Like, people were like, you're in a Bollywood movie. I'm like, no, not quite.
Right.
It's very different.
So that's why it's really, really different when it comes to America. I mean, you have like a couple of languages. Obviously, America is a nation made of immigrants, right? So English being the primary language. So it's been, you don't really have a state-based segregation. But in India, you have Bollywood, you have Tollywood, and then you have Collywood and Mollywood.
Wow.
So,
I mean, India is huge.
I mean, it's massive.
To its credit.
Population is way more than the US. I mean, 3-4 times the amount of people.
Yes, US is like what, 350 million?
Yeah, somewhere.
360.
India is like, I don't know, last time was like 1.24 billion.
Oh my God.
After a point, you like kind of lose the count, right?
Yeah. It's like you're already at a bill. Like, what's the other mill?
Right. Yeah, so going back to the original question, this is from a state of Kerala. So the industry is called Mollywood. So M as in Michael. So Mollywood industry, and the language is Malayalam. And Bollywood being Hindi, Telugu being Tollywood, Collywood being Tamil, and M Malayalam, so Mollywood.
Okay, interesting.
I was going to say most people I know either speak Hindi or Tamil. So I've never... I guess does that make it challenging to make films over there in general? In that, I guess like you could obviously just dub or use subtitles. And I know, I mean, like whenever I go to Lebanon and watch movies, there's Arabic subtitles, there's French subtitles, and there's English subtitles, and they play them on the screen.
The whole screen's got to be subtitles.
But I mean, basically, maybe not English subtitles, but it's mostly Arabic and French. But then the movie's in English. So I don't know. Do you have a similar like? Is it? It sounds like it might be like a challenge almost if you're trying to get something. But maybe it isn't because of how many people are there, right? So
we already talked about how, India has like Tollywood, Mollywood, Bollywood, everything. So these are all film industry in itself. These are like industries where there are like state laws with respect to, there are like state censor boards. So when you talk about America, I think it's one censor board.
Yeah, they have that that's like that ovally looking thing.
Right.
I forget what the acronym
American
is,
Film Certification Board or whatever. So, but in India, there's obviously the central government who approves these films, but it's all like controlled by the state. And if you want to make a Malayalam film in the world, anywhere in the world, and expect it to go to theaters, you have to go get the approval from the Malayalam folks in Kerala.
Which would be separate from all the other basis of things.
Correct.
So does that invite like a bigger challenge when you are making a movie? Because, I mean, obviously your goal is to sell it there, but, is there like this other not ulterior motive, but a motive to sell it all throughout? And if you do, like, it's probably hard to break through and do all that.
So when I decide on making a Malayalam movie in the US, obviously it needs to be registered with the government of Kerala. Right. So what that means is there's like Producers Association, there's like film union associations, and the Kerala state itself. So you have to register the movie, register the title, all sorts of things, get approval from the technicians. So, like technicians will make sure they get paid, things like that. So all of that stuff. So we have like people back in Kerala because we are primarily targeting Malayalam audience across the world.
Right.
So we need to make sure it's done well.
Yeah. So when was like inception of the film to, hey guys, let's do this, to, all right, you're executing, and then now is now, obviously. But what's the timeline of this look like? Because I know it was a labor of love from all of you guys.
Right. So, where do I start, right? So Checkmate took me 10 years. Right? It's a decade of my life.
Wow.
When I say Checkmate, the movie itself, not that movie, my creative aspirations, that's when I actually decided, hey, I want to make a film. So Checkmate in particular, I would say before COVID, the team, we wanted to make another movie, which was all done basically. We were like ready to roll, that sort of a thing. That's when COVID hit. So that movie was about, human trafficking, a little bit more serious subject. So then obviously the budget was kind of like out of hand. So we decided we'll make a smaller film, like an anthology film, right? So we started talking about discussing about these anthology films somewhere 2019, right? Yeah, so 2019 we started. So that was the inception of the idea of an anthology. And then I wrote the whole thing. It was like 4 or 5 different stories.
Wow.
And then one way or the other, down the line 6 months, I was able to combine all these stories, basically build bridges between each other.
Yeah, that was because watching it, and I think, you said, I think one of your favorites is Quentin Tarantino as far as like inspirations.
God.
Yeah, the God, dude. He really is. And it makes sense because a lot of the movie is like non-linear in its storytelling. So was that intentional when you were making the movie, or was that like something that you figured out afterwards? Like, do you know what I mean?
Say, see, put it this way: I want an X factor, right? If I try to, sell what's already in Kerala, right? If I may use the terminology, parota and chicken curry, right? So parota is a specific type of a bread.
Okay.
So obviously with chicken.
Okay.
So that's not gonna sell. I'm gonna fall flat, right? So what can I do to appease, to please the people of Kerala? So that's really the question that we want to start with, right? What can I do differently? Because, everyone, the whole world loves America, right? So there's obviously that X factor. So that X factor is taken care. Now it's a bunch of Malayalis in America trying to make a film in America in the Malayalam movie, in the Malayalam language, right? Not even Bollywood, right? So what are those X factors that we could come up with? So we started thinking, so this basically came up as one of the options, non-linear. Because non-linear, obviously the film, when it comes to the creative standpoint, it's my little snowflake, so I'm only going to say good things about it.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is that, folks in Kerala, my people, they're pretty smart. They watch all sorts of films, There are, like film critiques, like film critiquing is like big in Kerala.
Okay, so like YouTube channels and all that kind
YouTube channels,
of thing.
You won't believe it. You won't believe it. Right after, think of an instance like this, right? I'm just gonna put together a metaphor in place, right? So think of you exiting AMC theaters after watching the latest Avengers, right? Think of 50 reporters right outside and just basically asking you, what do you think of the movie? What do you think of the movie? That sort of a thing. Wow. That happens in Kerala a lot.
Okay.
And within 6 hours, you are basically looking at, hundreds of review videos. Obviously, free speech being one of the paramount reasons. They're saying good things, bad, ugly things, sort of trolling, insulting things, great things, technical mashups, all sorts of things that they're doing as soon as a movie is released. Now that right there kind of like paves path into, it's got its own tentacles, right? So there's like this industry that's in place, a PR industry, right? So using that PR industry, now you are basically able to judge how a movie does without even people watching the movie. Wow. In 8 hours, provided you're subscribe to the right YouTube channels or Instagram pages, you are looking at, okay, should I watch this movie? Yes, no, maybe.
Wow.
So a movie can make or break like this.
Oh, wow. Man. That's very quick too.
It's unbelievable.
So it sounds like, okay, so it's literally they're getting feedback from people as soon as they exit the theater.
Right.
That's so nuts. I can't imagine something like that happening here.
Yeah, that's like a really cool level of like care for the movies. Because whether it's good or bad, you at least know that you're going to get eyeballs and people at least reviewing it. Like I feel like these days it's like, it's tougher to get people to even go to theaters in the US,
Right.
I mean, it's definitely still there for some of the heavy hitters and whatnot, but,
I think movies from America, Hollywood movies are making more money overseas. I guess.
Yeah,
I could see that.
I've seen that.
I mean, I know that like just that the act of going to theaters is still very much a thing overseas, like at least more so than it is here. More people tend to watch things on streaming services now here, but yeah, like I know for a fact, I mean, even just speaking from like whenever I go to Lebanon, the movie theater is always packed. People are always going, you know what I mean? It seems like an eastern side of the world thing. But also I think it kind of makes it sound like, it might be a little more like stiff competition out there in that sense, right? And that like, that Like, hey, if you make something, you're immediately either going to be seriously like, oh
You'll
shit,
be ripped apart.
Yeah. So what's
good or
like,
for bad.
I'm sure it makes for good movies though, you know? So, cause there's I don't know. I feel like maybe how difficult is it to get a movie into a theater over there relative to here? Do you think? I don't know if you.
Which is actually a very pertinent question because Checkmate.
Yeah, we are going to be releasing Checkmate August 8th in theaters all over Kerala.
I think it's off.
Is it off? Turn it on. Turn it on.
So going back to the question, how hard or easy it's to release a movie in theaters, right? It's really tough. It's really tough for an independent team. Obviously, for an independent team. There are, like folks, established production companies, they kind of, follow this cookie cutter model.
Sure.
They can just release their movies or whatever, 200, 250 theaters in one shot.
Okay.
That sort of a thing. But for an independent filmmaking team, it's always a challenge.
Right.
Because these big guys, they don't take you seriously and they want like big bucks. So when they negotiate deals with you, they tell you ridiculous numbers, right? Ridiculous numbers as to, hey, wait a second. So distributing a movie should be a partnership. It should be a collaboration. It should not be looked at like a money-making mechanism, right?
Yeah.
That's not what happens. They ask you for ridiculous amounts. It's not good. So we were able to, collaborate with a couple of companies in Kerala, Snake Plant LLP being the marketing team. They've done a lot of amazing work with a lot of latest and greatest flicks. And Goodfellas Films, which is a new startup, basically, like a bunch of amazing guys. So they'll be basically taking our movies to theater.
Wow.
So do the theaters like typically, like obviously like you sound, it's very like, it's an industry, right? And then it sounds like people are kind of buddy-buddy or things are set up where it's like, well, we get our movies from this production house, whatever. Are there theaters that are more receptive to, like independent films, I guess I should say, where they're
not at all.
more...
See, not at all. And I respect that because that's a business, right? So obviously we are artists. We want our art to be featured or whatever. Sure. But for them, it's the infrastructure cost.
It's a risk, right?
It's a risk. They're running AC. They have employees to pay. So it doesn't matter what you're paying as long as it's legal and certified by the censor board of Kerala. They would want to maximize their revenue, and it's understandable.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
And so, I like a follow-up question. So for Indian films in America, how does that like process work? Is the barrier higher to entry? Oddly enough, there's actually theater like back my house where I grew up that play a lot of Indian films. Like I was surprised at the amount, at least during the week. I don't know if there's a difference on like they change the showings on the weekends or whatever. But I noticed when I was like going to the theater like a couple months ago. And continuing to notice that they actually had a lot of films playing out. And I would figure like, it's probably good. Like, I'm sure it's more of the, maybe it's the Bollywood scene and they have money so they can get their films in America. Or maybe it's even government subsidized because I feel like it would actually be good for the country to just get their films over here as well, But are you guys planning on trying to release here or is it...
Absolutely. So to answer the question, back in the days, right? So the AMCs, whatever those big companies are, back in the days, the big theater companies, right? I'm talking about AMCs and AMCs of the world. So they wouldn't like get foreign films, especially like Indian films, regional films, right? Maybe a little bit of maybe some Bollywood film. Once it makes a mark in Bollywood, they know about now, it could be a good idea to get this movie abroad. So that is why a parallel system was born, right? So in pretty much any state, if you see, obviously the West Coast and East Coast, New York, New England area versus the San Francisco, California area, and Chicago and Florida. So there were like, I would say tier 2 theaters that came up, and these folks would actually license those films. And obviously with the introduction of Cube, Cube and UFO and Sony, now it's just a click of a button, right? All you got to do is upload your content to their servers and they're going to basically stream it to that, whatever that theater's unique IDs or whatever. Okay. So there's no more like carrying big boxes,
with like actual film and
actual
stuff.
Film.
Yeah.
So now it's more acceptable. So pretty much all Malayalam movies, I would say, which are like a hit back home. They all play in AMCs and what was that other theater? Lowe's?
There's Regal Cinemas.
Regal.
I don't know if they do.
There used to be another one before Regal, though, too. But I'm forgetting right now.
Right.
But I'm actually curious, too. So obviously you have Lal Sir and Anoop Menon. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Yes.
Sorry, guys. But how did you get them to like how do you approach that conversation? Because it's like, hey, like I got this feature film. It's pretty friggin' cool. Check it out. But like, obviously these guys are like big time professionals. So I imagine those conversations aren't as simple as that.
So I think the first time we spoke to Anoop Menon, obviously he's not going to take me seriously, right? He's going to ask me for my portfolio, what I've done, that sort of a thing. So he had a lot of questions, and all he had was questions without any actual commitment. And then, I have this properly formatted, I use Celtics for script writing, properly formatted script that I sent it to him with a synopsis, a log line. We kind of like did the whole pitch deck, with this little cool picture and everything. So then he read the synopsis. He didn't read the whole screenplay. He read the synopsis and he was like, okay, so you're talking about, he asked all technical questions. So he did not jump into the creative aspect of the film. He started asking quite technical questions as to, okay, who's going to be doing the camera? How many staff do you have? That sort of a thing. So he kind of like interviewed me back and forth. And then I basically told him, hey, I'm going to be pretty much handling all departments. And so that really didn't work well with him. He was kind of like skeptical about it.
Yeah, understandably so.
Right?
Especially if you're coming from him and he's doing like the movies and scale of things that he's doing. Like he expects a certain level of quality and probably has a presumption that if that's not met, if these basics of my expectations aren't met, then the movie's not going to be worth my time.
Yes. I mean, he's basically coming onto he's going to be on a chopping block, so to speak, right? Chopping block of his career. He doesn't want that. Yeah. So obviously, we went back and forth on a lot of interviews, things like that. And then he slowly started getting into the creative aspect. Okay, so I don't necessarily agree with a lot of things that's happening in the screenplay. How are you? Because I can't make sense of it. So he started asking things like, okay, how does this narrative really work? Is this narrative going to? How are you planning on And at that point, I did not have the full narrative like the way it's reflected in the movie.
Okay.
I did not have it at that point. So it was a process, I would say. Took about 3 months going back and forth with him. He was really supportive because he's like an exceptional writer, director, actor. So he's done a lot of, he's an accomplished guy.
Yeah.
He's got like awards and stuff, like awards equivalent to like state Grammys. I know Grammys like national, but he's got like several cool awards. So at some point, obviously I had to like pull the plug. So I think, okay, so how am I going to do this? And he basically told me one sentence: trusting you, don't mess it up.
Wow.
Okay. He basically came on board.
Was that an email or was that like
It was a WhatsApp message. I still have it.
Yeah, I was gonna say like that's one of those that you're like you screenshot can frame it.
Right.
That's really really cool. Now,
that's cool that he was going back and forth with you too, giving feedback and whatnot. It seems a little bit more like collaborative than...
He saw potential in the story.
Yeah.
And, when I started, like looking at references, and as we are talking, I'm talking about, cinematography principles, films, the theory of the film in general. He was intrigued. He was intrigued as to, okay, all right, so you're planning on doing this, okay, this new type of editing technique. And then he would ask me for samples, and I will actually shoot videos, probably stitch it up and send it to him. And I've also done like several music videos, short films, things like that. So it's not that I haven't done anything.
Right, you had things to provide. It's like, this is just the next big jump.
So yeah, so as soon as Anoop Menon was on board, we reached out to Lal. So Lal was, you're talking about Lal. I told you about how Anoop Menon is an actor, a director, a writer. So he's done like several movies. So
which is a great asset to have on your team in many ways, because when he shows up to set, he can be like, oh, maybe we could try this or that. And it's a little bit, it's helpful. Yeah.
Right. So actor Lal sir, I would say, if I take 5 films that he's done in his career, those 5 films are taught in universities. That sort of screenplay, direction, it's incredible. What he's done when he was my age is incredible. There's no question about it. There are some of the movies to watch out for is like, Godfather, not the American Godfather.
Oh, I was about to be like, Well, yeah, but I don't think that's well
Indian
said.
Godfather, which is an extremely well-made movie, a lot of comedy.
Is it reflective of the American Godfather?
I would say the concept.
Okay.
I would say yes, the concept is kind of reflecting to an individual that people reach out to when they are in trouble, so to speak, right? So that concept, now that I'm looking at it, there's like similarities. The concept, not the
no horse head in the bed or anything like that. Or,
no.
Okay.
The film in itself, right?
Got
the conceptually, I would say, but the narrative story, screenplay, it's not a remake, so to speak.
Okay.
Yeah, and then there are movies like Manar Matai speaking, unbelievable. So in fact, Lal Sir's. This is this kind of a trivia, right? So Lal Sir's and Siddiq, so Siddiq Lal, they were like a combination. So the first ever film that they wrote, right, was produced by our lead actress's dad. Rekha Harindran's dad. His name is Harindran.
Interesting.
Yeah. So
did that come up in conversation when you're talking to him at all, or?
Yes. In fact, when Lal came on call, right, the first time, it was a Zoom call. I didn't go meet them in person.
Yeah, right.
So it was a Zoom call. We kind of introduced. We basically told Rekha, hey, a different actor, right, different actor. So I think we're gonna set up a Zoom call with him. Because we used to have like Zoom calls all the time with technicians, whatnot. So. And then Lal Sir came, and then Rekha was like, Lal uncle, that sort of a thing, right? And then he was like, he was like surprised to see her because obviously
it's probably been a while.
It's been a while.
Yeah,
it's been a while. So, I mean, I wouldn't say it has any influence because going back to the real question, right? Lal Sir was also like extremely skeptical. So he asked me questions, was unbelievable. We have had like multiple conversations with him. Yeah. And at the end, Anoop Menon was already signed up for the movie. It was like, all right, trusting you, go ahead. We'll do it. That sort of a thing. And he kind of liked his role.
It's a pretty badass role.
Yes, it's a pretty badass role. And, it's kind of tailor-made for him, so to speak, right? Which is why, when I wrote the character, all I had was Lal Sir in mind.
Wow.
Similarly for Anoop Menon. In fact, the first pitch deck that we had, even before Checkmate, even before us approaching Anoop Menon, or even me setting up a casting call in Connecticut, the first photo that I had in pitch deck was Anoop Menon's.
Wow, no way.
Yeah.
So that must be a little surreal. You mean you landed the two guys you kind of had in mind too while you were writing it?
Right. Because he's considered this, this intelligent guy in Kerala. He reads a lot, writes a lot. He kind of writes stuff on Facebook wall that I can't even make sense of, that sort of English. So he's like this, he's accepted from that point, if you see.
Yeah, what always struck me about him was his voice. Right. And like getting a chance to work with him, there was something about it where like he just has a demeanor about him, and he's tall. Right. He's like surprisingly tall. And like, it's almost hard to capture that on camera, that like presence. And it's there. But like there was something about like acting with him. I was like, oh God dang. It was like there was a certain pressure and stuff like walking up to him. And I was very honored to have as many scenes with him as I did. So
absolutely. And he loved your performance too.
That's great.
He in fact told me, like if they're like making something back in Kerala, if there's an American or a white guy.
Yes. They need a token white dude. I'm there, man.
Yes. Randy's my man.
Yes. Let's go. That'd be so fun. That's awesome. So what do you think was one of the sort of challenges when you're actually filming the movie? Because believe me, I was there for some of it, but I know you guys were all working like, day jobs as well as staying up till like 1, 2 in the morning, 3, 4 in the morning, then going to work, having kids. Like, what do you think was like the biggest challenge?
So when we talk about challenges, there's like 2 types of challenges, right? One being the logistics, the daily logistics, right? Getting on set, doing the actual filming, that sort of a thing, right?
Sure.
Now, the other challenge is the challenge that happens with lack of planning. Because you did not plan well, what sort of challenge that you could end up with.
Right.
Now, that right there, that was our because we had time, right? It was not like, we had to like film the movie in a couple of months and then release in three months. That's not what I was planning on doing anyway. So my biggest challenge was when I make a film, a first-time filmmaker with a lot of newcomers, new talents, with reputed guys like Anoop Menon and Lal sir. I want to make sure that movie truly represents what a Hollywood quality could represent in an Indian context.
Yeah.
So in order for us to achieve that, we need to have like acting classes, right? So we did workshops for close to 8 months. So I would say that was my biggest challenge. How do I take my friends and people that I know who live in the community, like in the New York, Connecticut, Massachusetts area, how do I make them look professional?
Yeah, like really stand up with all the greats.
Right.
And not be like overshadowed by them.
Right.
Okay, so you guys had a lot of prep work going into it. No, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. I'm sure, like, did you guys run into anything, given there's a lot of people first time, did you guys run into anything where, it's tough to plan, again, if it's your first time, you don't know what you don't know, right? So, like, was there anything that, was kind of like a oh shit moment while you were filming where you had to, I guess, unforeseen complication?
So, I would say we rewrote the script a lot, right? So unlike in Hollywood, at least in theory, you don't rewrite the script on,
while you're filming.
Right? While you're filming, right?
I remember even my stuff was like, either shortened or like, hey, how would you say this? Which was fun in a way because we went back and forth a lot, which was kind of fun, but I'm sure stressful from a creator's point of view.
So I had to rewrite some stuff, based on what the narrative was looking like. You kind of like draw your energy while you're filming, right? So, hey, this is a new good opportunity that's come in, or maybe this scene doesn't really work the way it's written, that sort of a thing. So rewriting the script, as soon as I rewrote some of the lines, my actors freaked out because they've been like practicing for months, and now they don't know what to say, they don't know the enunciation. I basically had to like do this whole, blocking in a different way,
right,
as it was initially planned. So that was one of the biggest challenge, and generally, me handling, the camera, obviously I should be looking through a monitor, but now I'm actually holding a monitor in my hand. The camera that we used, we did have a focus puller, but I had to use the Canon autofocus a lot.
Yeah.
Right.
Luckily, Canon has a fantastic autofocus,
right.
man. And you were shooting on the C70, right?
C70. It's a Canon C70.
It's a great camera, man.
Great camera. It's so like nice. A Super 35mm sensor, approved by Netflix and everything. It's a great camera.
Yeah.
A small form factor.
One. Yes. It's like Canon's red Komodo.
Right.
It's like very similar, except Canon coloring and I like Canon better, but.
So a lot of technical challenges, and then one of our teammates got COVID. So that was, I would say, shit show.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, we lost a lot of people just because of that. Obviously, some of the folks had to go home. So we kind of like had to pull everything together. And Lal sir was really supportive during the time it happened. He was like, take it easy. Just set me up with a place. I'll just relax.
Yeah, because that's right. That's a context that we're kind of missing from this conversation is that it was shooting during COVID times. Like 2021 is, I think, when maybe was it 22? I forget. It was
been back half of 21, but
yeah, it was like 2021
COVID
into
was
2022.
Alive and active.
Yeah, it was, because I remember there's people still wearing masks. There's protocols. You still had to get tested to go on set. It was like a whole thing.
Hard enough to get people in one place, like all in one place at one time. You know what I mean? So like,
let alone add the
COVID,
whole global pandemic thing on top of it.
And we followed all the laws. There were like laws
of course.
Present at that time. You had to like have people test on a daily basis, quarantine. Like. Lots of laws. I don't really remember the specifics, but we were in compliance of all of that.
Yeah, and it just adds like this extra layer of like, oh God, like it's already so hard to shoot a movie, let alone now you have to have all these extra steps just to even get to shooting, know? Correct. But yeah, that's pretty crazy, man. And I remember like too, like there's so many layers to this, mainly because you're also doing all of the music too of the movie, and the music's really good. it's not like kind of good. Like it's actually like a really great part of the movie. How does I mean, obviously you're a musician, but like that must have been crazy in the editing room to go through all that.
See, I'm two things. I'm a musician and I'm a technician. Rest everything, it's kind of made up.
Right.
That's basically who I am. I mean, in force of habit, when you're pushed to a corner, you'll be surprised what people are capable of, right? So that's really them, the dictionary example of that. Now, going back to music, that's what drives me. I'm a musician. I used to be the lead singer in our college band. Starting from that point, all I've done is basically music-related stuff.
Wow.
So, and again, I also want to credit Ruslan Perizzello, who is the background score. He did the background score. I forgot where he was from. He's my long-term friend. He basically did music for all the short films that I did.
Okay.
So he was also really, really supportive. So when we say music, I did all the songs in the...
Yeah, because there's a whole number that's like it kind of... And you do it smart, where like it starts, it's like the background of the bar, but then it's also like you're on camera. I was like, Ratish made it to camera. All right, let's go. And you have a great voice, man.
Oh yeah, fantastic singer, by the way. I've seen. I don't know.
Every time you're singing on something, I'm like, send to Adam. You know?
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, so I mean, it was interesting. The movie has about 10 songs, and in Indian films, especially in South Indian films, you use songs as a storytelling tool, right? So songs are used to communicate this emotion. Passing of time, montages, things like that, right? So you basically use songs as a tool for that. So we have used that extremely well in Checkmate. 4 songs in the movie, which are basically exist just to tell a story. That sort of a thing. So yeah, it was a challenge, but I don't know. I've got like 150 unreleased songs, so. I just
just pulling from the catalog. You're like, this will work.
Every time I got this idea, I'll, put a metronome on 85 BPM and a A minor chord or a D chord, and I'm tanpura, and I basically sing to it and I just record it. So I've got like, I don't know, 150, 200 ideas right on my phone. So,
just like sitting there, huh?
Yeah. No scarcity of songs.
Wow, that's crazy. So, what's the so we've made the film, you've edited the film. You did a bunch of premieres.
Right.
How did those premiere? I went to one, which was awesome. That theater was crazy. There was Apple Cinemas
in Hartford. So we did a screening for Checkmate in Connecticut. 6 to 8 shows. And Massachusetts as well as Florida.
Wow. Florida?
Yes.
That's random.
So we
only random because the other 2 were at least in New England.
Yeah.
Right. What was the Florida hookup?
So part of the motivation of doing a screening exercise, we've actually re-edited the film.
Since I saw it?
Yes, since you saw it, the film has been re-edited. Right?
Shorter? Longer?
Shorter. But there are some minor changes, really minor changes. Now, the reason for that is obviously we made this film in America, right? And we, just because we can, and we're not bound by time, I thought I'll probably, I'll just put it out for test, like a pilot program, right?
Sure.
Yeah, so a lot of people saw the film, they loved it, but there were some feedback. I mean, we got close to, we were really methodical about the whole process. My assistant director, Bala Saumya, Saumya is a creative director. So they will basically come up with these sheets, right, with notes. So we collated over 200 feedback. And out of that 200, we kind of like shortlisted about 90. And from that 90, we implemented 6 changes.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
So we kind of like went through this methodical process. We met for like several days, and we went back and forth. I have like crazy diagrams of Checkmate made. Checkmate universe, right? We have like 6, 7 types of ending, starting. We kind of like basically like play with the movie, all sort of like different type of narrative changes, right? And then we keep challenging ourselves. Hey, is this narrative gonna make more sense, or how about we kind of like take and stitch it back forth and together? So we did that exercise after the screening was done. And so the screening was really, really successful. And Florida, some of our executive producers are from Florida,
Okay, that makes sense.
So Lindo Jolie is one of the executive producers.
Oh, I like him, man. He's a cool dude.
Incredible guy, incredible artist too. So, he wanted to make sure his people see it.
Very
cool. So, and it was random strangers. And so we basically collated feedback from there as well.
Wow.
So
really successful event.
How do you guys do the feedback? Just like handouts at the end or something like that?
So we reserved about 30 minutes after the movie. And surprisingly, we gave the option of people to leave. Right?
Mm-hmm, yep.
It's not like, you can't leave.
It's like, hey, if you guys have prior obligations, like feel free to head out. But those of you that are actually cool, no, I'm just kidding.
So we gave the option, hey, if you guys want to be somewhere, please leave. But surprisingly, everyone from every single show kind of like stayed back and they gave their feedback, and we really couldn't so we recorded the whole session, and as we were like reviewing it, we came up with this text or whatever and started jotting those feedbacks on.
Nice. Okay.
So what's the current runtime of this movie right now?
I was going to ask the same
So the runtime is same.
Okay.
So the runtime from a theater perspective has changed. It's like narratives back and forth.
Okay.
Some of the potentially confusing points, right?
Sort of like smooth them out a little bit.
Like made it a little bit more narrative. I mean, if it was for me, I would have left it the way it is. But since we got those feedback and it was like really, really, so we did kind of a voting system, right? So we have a very democratic process in our, everyone has a say in what they need to say. So we kind of went back and forth and made some narrative changes.
Okay. But the movie is around like 2.5?
2 hours, 5 minutes.
2 hours, 5?
Yes.
Nice. That's good.
Man, that must have been fun to edit.
Right.
Whoa, what was your first cut? Hold on, I think I remember. Your first cut was how long?
Assembly cut was 3 hours, 20 minutes long.
Of course, always. So, it's always way longer than, and then you're like, all right, well, if something had to go, and then you do that like 10 more times, and then,
It's funny how like even in the editing process, like just shaving off a second a scene, all of a sudden you're shaving like minutes off,
right?
In just making things a little snappier, and just getting it going, which is good. It's good that like it's not 3 hours,
right?
Like it's not like I love me a good long movie, but I think too many movies these days are pushing the 2.5 hours plus. That don't need to be.
Right. Attention span, right? People have like choices. They're like, watching multiple programs at the same time. They pause, they go back and forth between. So Rajesh Prakash, my editor back in India, in Kerala. So he's an award-winning editor, done several feature films. So we kind of back and forth collaborate, and he did the assembly cut and send it to me, right? And even after that, we went back and forth, and I would like co-edit, and only because I'm not able to be present there, right? I'm an editor. I mean, I can edit too.
Yeah.
So we kind of like, and Premiere has this great team collaboration, right? So you are able to collaborate using the team within Adobe. So we kind of like used all sorts of technological advancements to make this editing a very, very collaborative process. Actually.
Wow, that's really cool, man. It's kind of crazy what like modern tech has allowed us to do, because it's just like it's insane. And it's when you're an indie person and you're making a film, like people, I don't think people realize just how hard it is to make a movie, let alone to make a good movie.
So it's interesting you say that. Let me put my chief technical officer hat on and answer this, right?
Okay.
So this project right here is this textbook example of how pretty much anyone can collaborate and do any creative project or project related to artificial intelligence or technology or whatever. It doesn't matter. The sky's the limit. So I use all sorts of freelancing websites. So we have like teams set up, WhatsApp groups, Zoom calls, and the whole screen sharing thing. And when I record with the musicians, like live musicians, we use this remote monitoring software, right? So with this remote monitoring software, I'm able to like listen to them without even a millisecond drop.
Wow,
it's unbelievable, right? So I've got like
insane.
Musicians from all over the world. I mean, Austin, my buddy in Texas.
Okay.
I believe he's from Texas or Nashville. I'm not sure.
Okay.
So we collaborated with Austin a lot. So Austin would like basically, I would tell him something like, so I use whistling, right? When I do a composition, right? So what's a guitar?
Mm-hmm.
So I would kind of like guide him. Hey, can you do this on a guitar? And he'll be like,
send it back to you.
So it actually does it live.
Oh,
so
wow.
Like I can listen to it right away.
Wow.
So similarly, Steven Schumann, he is in Nashville. He's a great cellist. So, as I'm kind of like collaborating with him for the Kanmani song, right? So they have difficulty,
right?
That sort of a thing, right? It's like a very Eastern thing.
It is.
Yes, it is.
The notes are
He's
in
great.
between.
Yeah, I mean, he's great. He works with me, and even folks from back in India, like Chennai and Cochin. There are like musicians back there, and we had like some terrific singers in this movie. K.S. Chitra ma'am, she's a national award winner. So
wow.
You name any award in the world, she would have an equivalent, right? Unbelievable artist.
Amazing.
Yeah, so
crazy. There's so many things I don't know that are happening in the background that like I get to just appreciate as a final product, but like, it's really cool to hear about it.
I mean, nowadays, like I feel like just because of the tools we have available, like tech tools. I mean, even just like we're doing a podcast here in this room, I mean, it's only because you can get a really good camera and a small package and blah blah blah.
Yeah, that's right. Because back in the day, you wouldn't have been able to get cameras like these and like little,
exactly.
But yeah, like software wise, I mean, even get the fact that you could pick up a C70 and like you have the ability to rent these things too, even or like rent a lens, and it's like way cheaper than purchasing your own unless you're doing multiple projects, whatever. But yeah, it's kind of like the same way. Even with AI, is kind of giving people the ability to do things on their own without having to have,
a bunch of other people.
ton of capital or skill or whatever it is. But but like from an organizational perspective, like there's tons of things you got to keep track of, if you're like managing the whole project. Just probably the more like people might underestimate, hey, how many things you have to keep track of or account for when you're trying to do something right that, like you can definitely get access to the materials now a lot easier. But yeah, it's like little things like, oh, well, we'll budget this amount of days to shoot this. And then, well, what do you know? It takes like twice as long because you didn't realize how hard it is to corral people. And also you never know on the day of what's going to happen. And
you get ideas or, this is actually better. Oh, we're going to reshoot this. This doesn't work with that.
Yeah. I mean, Randy, you say you're actively rewriting stuff, so.
Randy here, right here is the best example, right? So his audition as well as a script reading session happened on Zoom.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
It was all on Zoom.
Yeah, it was Zoom. And then there was that one day where we were like, all right, we're going to do a rehearsal. And I'm just meeting everybody for the first time. And we chose the scene where I have to, I had to grab him and like throw him up against the wall. And I remember I think I told you when I was on the way, I was like, yeah, it's like, I don't know what we're doing, but he chose a pretty violent scene for me to audition for. So yeah.
Meeting this guy for the first time.
Yeah. He's like, I was like, are you okay? He's like, yeah. He's like, yeah, go for it. I was like, all right, cool. This worked.
See, in Indian cinema, things are a lot more raw.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
You don't want to be perceived as decent. You want to be as natural as possible.
Right.
So when we exert pressure, right, even if it's a fighting scene, I mean, you obviously see a lot of dramatic things, right? Like guys' head getting cut off and then up in the air, that sort of a thing. People blowing up in half.
Yeah.
So so that sort of a thing, it kind of like make it very visually appealing. All the blood.
They're a ton of fun to watch. I've actually watched a ton. Mostly on flights, oddly enough, because they're kind of like longer movies. A lot of them are about cops doing either shady stuff or quite the opposite, being like superhero-esque. But like, I actually wanted to ask like a runtime too. I'm sorry, I just kind of interject here, but like are typically the movies over there longer in general, or like would you say, or?
I would say yes. Historically, it has been really, really long. I would say.
Like with 3 hours.
2.5 hours to 3 hours was like a
pretty
standard
normal
movie, right? So now since the introduction of OTT platforms like Netflix and Amazon and social media in general, right? People are really distracted. So if you want to get their attention in a theater, It better be a really compelling storyline or
Yeah.
some superstar that they just want to like keep watching for like 2 hours. It doesn't matter what he or she does. You know,
Right.
that sort of a thing.
Yeah.
I would say the 2 hour mark is ideal.
Okay.
And what about like the miniseries, like short film kind of industry over there? Is there a lot of that? I mean, obviously, it's like Netflix exists over there, so I would imagine there's people doing the same thing where it's just shows, hour-long episodes, and that type of stuff. Like, are you interested in any of that, or is that big over there?
I would say, just looking at this from a technology standpoint, right? The rate of technology adoption that happens in Kerala, my home state, is incredible. You know, everyone has a smartphone. Everyone's a computer literate. You know, people are like highly educated because education is kind of like seen as class. If you're not educated, that kind of like means, you know, maybe that's basically the criteria. That's the benchmark that you have to achieve if you need to have like a stable, acceptable social life.
Nice.
Right? So
wish some of that would leak in the United States, man. That'd be great.
Right. So education is the bar. That's the benchmark, right?
No,
pretty much, you know, everywhere in Kerala. And most of
like
that
an
was
Eastern
done.
concept too. Very
Yeah, dude. I don't know what happened over here. We were just like, yeah, being dumb is cool.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know why that became a popular thing, but like, let's bring back education or something. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah. So what was the question? I'm trying to.
Oh, it was
miniseries versus films over there. You were talking about technological adoption.
So when you just simply talk from a technology adoption standpoint, right? Everyone has a camera. Everyone's like computer literate. Everyone's have a laptop. You're talking about Adobe, you know, Final Cut Pro. Doesn't matter. Logic Pro, DAW tools, all sorts of things people are so well aware of. And some of the kids that I'm working with on this movie, right? Like there's this guy called Asad, right? He's a conformist, right? The kind of knowledge that guy possesses is incredible with respect to all aspects of films, right? And I'm from a technology background. So I keep thinking, and these guys doesn't really get paid a lot. I'm telling you. I mean, the industry, the Indian film industry, the Malayalam film industry need to pay their technicians better. There's no question about it because the kind of effort that they put in is just incredible. And the knowledge that they have, right? Because I'm from a technology standpoint. If I give a Cisco router to this Asad guy, I'm telling you, in a couple of weeks, he'll master it. He'll master the whole UI. He'll master the whole, you know, whatever, you know, the 7 OSI layers. He'll master all of that because I can think like him.
Right.
I can see that him, how smart these guys are. I mean, not just, you know, I don't want to like Bilal, Sangeet, who is an exceptional actor who in the industry now, by the way. He's an incredible technician. The sound design guys, you know, Prajesh, his team, incredible technicians. So the technology adoption rate in Kerala is unprecedented, if you ask me. So on that point, everyone's a director. Everyone's an actor. The kind of scale of short films that come out of Kerala, South India, India in general, and it's all uploaded to YouTube for free. You know, YouTube short films and YouTube is like a big industry right now.
Sure.
And most of the major filmmakers, if you see right now in India, there's this guy from South India, I think Lokesh Kanagaraj. He actually, you know, and who was the other guy? Karthik Subramaniam. These guys are like A-lister directors in India right now. They all came from the short film background. So A-lister directors in India coming from short film background. Can you believe that?
Wow.
They're able to make this film technically soundproof. You know, it's incredible. The content is raw, great. And then they push it to some of these producers. So that's like a portfolio of their service.
Yeah.
Okay.
So because if not, they won't let you in the room.
Right. Yeah. It's like,
Because
hey, like,
there's a lot of population.
You have to,
yeah. Well, like to your point too, it's like, and this is probably why it's been, you know, an effort for you to get your movie out there and why it is a challenge is everyone is awesome.
Right.
And if everyone is making stuff, then the barrier to entry kind of has to be high.
Correct.
Because they're probably getting tons of knocks on their door like, hey, I'm talented, like let my movie in theaters. Hey, I'm talented, let my movie in theaters. And how many times do you hear that before you actually let an indie person in, you know? Indie as in independent person, you know, creator.
And if I may, you know, address that a little bit, right? There's also one other aspect. It's not just about being good or cool or technologically advanced. There's also this practice in India, generally, where a subset of people control the industry, right? It's like highly regulated, highly controlled. And, you know, like, and for the good or bad, we don't really know. what, right?
Right.
So it's a different system in itself. And films are, so if you look at some of the politicians, right? In America, I can think of Arnold Schwarzenegger, who came from films to, like mainstream politics.
Yeah.
But in India, it's done a lot.
Really?
It's actually done a lot. A lot of folks,
wow.
just because they have the face,
and the charisma,
the face
public
value,
perception. People already kind of know him, and
people just look at them. Film, politics doesn't matter. I just want to support this guy, And one of the biggest actors in South India, Vijay, he's like an incredible actor. So he is entering politics. Yeah, he's actually quitting films.
No way.
And entering politics.
So when are you running for office?
Ratish, when's it happening?
Ballot
2035.
Yeah, that's right. So the movie is coming out in theaters, though.
Yes.
When?
August 8th.
August 8th.
August 8th.
That's both here and there? Or?
So it's going to be in Kerala.
Okay.
But we are planning on releasing it in other states as well. Like I said, the Malayalam language is primarily spoken in Kerala.
Right.
But we are also planning on releasing it in Chennai, Hyderabad. Those are like some major cities. And also the Middle East.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So Dubai, Saudi Arabia.
Nice.
There's an incredible amount of people who are from the Indian Kerala diaspora who live in those countries. It's unbelievable.
Wow.
I mean, we have like extremely good relationships with the Middle East.
That's
folks
amazing.
From Kerala.
So, and then how long is the run? Or like how long do they give you? Or like if it's popular, they give you more days? Or how's that work out?
Yes, so it's all driven by metrics, right?
Okay.
You basically have, are people coming to the theaters?
Yeah.
Because like you mentioned already, it's kind of a challenge to get people into theaters.
Yeah.
So as long as there are people showing up, they're going to request for more and more shows. And it's like so easy to do that nowadays because it's Cube, right? Cube is the company that controls the whole workflow.
Okay.
So, they give shows.
So they give you the numbers. You get like a front
7.
panel or something.
So they give shows in blocks of 7.
Okay.
So you just have like, okay, I need that block. And the Cube will stream it or make it available. And you basically keep playing it.
Okay.
Oh, nice.
Cool. And is the intention like you do like a theater run and then it's like distribution, like online distribution after that?
Ooh, OTT platforms. That's a huge one, right? So because, if you look at the financial model, when you treat movies as a commodity, right? The kind of capital investment that you have to make to get a movie, to its finish line, that percentage, right? The percentage of that compared to the ROI, I would hope for it to be one way or the other related to the quality of the film. But unfortunately, that is not the case. So a regional language film could be making 2 crores, which is 200,000 is so 250,000, right?
Okay.
I couldn't know how to
Yeah,
spell
that's fine.
I typed
What are you
in
looking
cores.
at?
I got it.
Two cores lights? Or-
2 cores lights. 2 cores lights. Sounds like a good time for some cheap beer.
All right, so the same type of film in a different linguistic, right? Different state, a language, Hindi, that'd be taken for like 10 times more.
Just because more people speak the language,
more people speak the language, the whole, like spread out. Of
True. I mean, I guess it makes
Hindi
sense, right? Like,
more.
because they have way bigger market share.
Right.
So relatively speaking, like, I guess it makes sense. It would translate that way.
Yeah. So OTT platforms, it makes sense to them, right? Because it's all driven by subscriptions in the background.
Of course.
So they want to be cognizant of what they do to their shareholders, but that really doesn't help the regional language films a lot,
right?
Because most of this is like controlled by metrics.
I mean, all the money would just end up staying where Hindi, like in the Hindi film space, etc. And if you want to grow Malayalam space at all, you kind of have to be making movies at maybe higher volume of them at lower cost, whatever.
Correct.
But I mean, how common is it that somebody from a different state, I would assume it's probably better with neighboring states, but that somebody from a different state speaks another, the language of the one, next to it or across from it?
That's a good question. So I can speak Hindi,
okay,
Malayalam, my native language, English, and Tamil.
Wow.
So I can
Jeez,
speak
dude.
four languages.
Wow.
I mean, when I say claim to speak all these 4 languages, my South Indian, like my Tamil and Hindi friends are going to make fun. But put it this
They're
way,
like, this guy can't actually do that. Look at him on a podcasting platform saying he can speak Tamil.
Yeah,
So,
that's hilarious.
Trust me when I say this. I mean, I could request someone to save my life or ask for directions. So as far as I'm concerned, if I can do that in that language, I'm proficient in that language.
Got it. Okay.
And I sing songs in those languages too.
Okay, there you go.
Okay.
Nice.
So
Are the
that
accents
kind
a
of
little different too?
Accents and dialect is a lot different.
Okay.
I was gonna say, like, as I said before, like I know like a fair amount of Indian people, and every one of them either speaks Hindi or Tamil. So like it makes sense.
So for OTT platforms to be fair, I mean, obviously they're not in the fairness game.
Yeah, they're in the can I make money off
kind of make money off game.
Yeah.
But, just by going with metrics, right? Someone like me who speaks, several languages, like 4 or 5 different languages. I'm a Malayali and I am subscribing to your service and I watch other language films.
Yeah.
But now you're not treating my language fairly, my language films fairly, right? Because someone in Hindi might not necessarily watch Malayalam films, which has kind of like changed starting 2024 because it was like a huge influx of some terrific Malayalam movies that are released. So Malayalam movies are getting, Mollywood is getting a lot of traction, like the whole country is talking about it, so to speak.
Okay.
But the OTT platforms don't necessarily think so, because it's all driven by subscription. I just want every language folks in India to watch Malayalam films. So the standard of the Malayalam films with respect to, return on investment can increase and they can keep making more movies.
So would you guys typically, would you provide something like a dubbed version or something like that? And like, I know that takes away from the experience because obviously like have the actors and the way they say things. I don't know if any of them actually speak like Hindi and Tamil well enough such that they could dub over their own. But does that help like kind of break that a bit? Or is that necessary when you're uploading? Obviously the film is in Malayalam, but I don't know if you also offer it.
Believe it or not, there are like industries set up for this right now, just for dubbing rights, right? So if a Malayalam movie does really well,
that makes a lot of sense.
You're talking about, like the folks from the Hindi language, Telugu language, Tamil language, Bengali language, Marathi language, they all want a piece of it. So they basically say, okay, we'll get the dubbing rights. And they dub the movie and they either release it in their respective OTT platforms or they even upload it to YouTube.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. There's a lot of money out there.
No, I could definitely see that. I mean, I personally have watched a bunch of Turkish shows in Arabic, It's like, and they dub them and it's different, but they're still entertaining and I still consume the content. So I would imagine, that a similar thing would happen. And it makes a lot of sense as an industry for it, considering how many people are there, right? So,
see, and when you consider a movie like Checkmate, right? So Checkmate is for international audience. It's not specifically made for regional audience. I mean, Checkmate has all Malayalam Indian film sensibility. So when it comes to the whole emotional roller coaster, right? All of that stuff is accurately placed in Checkmate. But Checkmate can equally cater to other Indian languages, as well as Korean, English, anywhere. Like folks in Middle East, anyone can watch Checkmate and feel good about it.
Yeah.
So I mean, obviously,
you had the English subtitles there, which was when I was watching it was great because when I was on set, a lot of times what I was doing was waiting for, and you did this beautifully, waiting for someone to say the English line so that I knew it was my turn to speak. They'd be like all this talk and then be like, cut the crap. Let's make a deal. I'm like, haha, my line's coming.
That's an interesting perspective now that I'm looking at it that way.
You know what I mean?
I understand both the languages.
Yeah, so you knew, but like,
went through.
Yeah, I had to, so I was just like, I had to just wait until, and like, still be acting it in the moment. But in the back of my head, I'm like, all right, I think my line's, nope. Oh, he has a monologue first. It goes long monologue and then he turns around and then, okay, now it's my turn.
It's funny.
Yeah. Funny. Yeah. So it was great to actually see the movie.
So it's like, Randy's like, wait, attack. Let's do it.
Yeah, exactly. Like you'd say like one English line. I'm like, oh, hell yeah. Now I know where I am. But like when I got to see the movie, the English subtitles changed the whole game because now I was like, oh, that's what they were saying the whole time, because I couldn't read the script either because like there wasn't really at the time like an accurate representation of the English like version of the dialogue, and so the story made so much more sense. And I'm like, all right, like this is awesome. But also it was just cool to rewatch my scenes with the English subtitles. All of this to say just that, yes, the movie is definitely for multiple audiences of all different languages, so long as like the accompanying, I think even subtitles are there. And I'm a type of person where like I really like Korean, Japanese type films and cartoons and stuff, or anime as they're called. But, you know, watching the subbed version where it's subtitles is sometimes honestly way better than in movies in particular. Like one of my favorites of all time is Train to Busan. I will not watch Train to Busan with the English dub. Right. It needs to be the original Korean actors because it just has that feeling and all that. And
There's way more of that. There's way more of that in the originals. And like, I feel like a lot of people are warming up to, you know, more foreign films with subtitles nowadays.
Yeah, look at King Kong -1.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think. Like, I think the first movie I ever watched, aside from maybe some random Arabic films, but in a different language, was like Pandora's Box, which was all in Spanish. And that movie was fantastic. And I didn't know what the hell they were saying, but the point is like, I know I could read, obviously. And then, but the act, it you know, obviously it's just a less, it kind of takes you out of it a bit when reading dub, or listening to dub. But I feel like people are very much okay with watching foreign films now with subtitles. It definitely had like a breakout, I feel like, the past maybe 5 years or so.
It's important to watch a film in its original language.
Yes.
And I'll tell you part of the reason why. See, one of the primary qualities an actor should have if they want to become successful is to be an excellent voice artist. If you can't be an actor without being a voice artist, right? So when you talk about Train to Busan sort of films, right? So the person who did the lead, he's able to emote all those emotions. I'm not saying another voice artist can't, but he's able to emote all those emotions, and he was able to get to that role not just because of his looks, it's also because of several factors, right? His emotion, his enunciation, his diction, his tonal quality, lots of things. Like, I'm a sound guy, so it kind of like goes into it, right? So that's what everyone should realize. You can't be a really good actor unless you're a good voice artist.
No, it's true. I mean, like the vocal signature of a lot of people is incredibly important. Right. And like, it's just something that, is the reason why we all love Morgan Freeman.
Right.
Exactly. He's just got the voice of God, and like, just like Lasser, when he's on set, and I was like, his voice is just booming and like resonating in the.
Can you imagine Morgan Freeman saying, "I am Morgan Freeman"?
Yeah, it wouldn't work. It just wouldn't be the same.
It's a whole ensemble. You get the visual with the audio,
right?
Yeah, and then
like Liam Neeson, right?
Oh
Liam Neeson saying, "I don't know who you are.
Yeah,
I don't know what you want."
Right?
Yeah. Saying, "I don't know who you are. I don't know what you want." I'm not making fun of someone else. I'm just saying.
No, but it's true. It's a total package deal. Like, you have to have it all, and which is why they're in the positions they're in.
Right.
It's not like an accident.
Exactly.
But we are kind of sneaking over the hour mark here. I don't know if there's anything that like you wanted to ask in particular.
You want to give the questions?
Yeah. Any other? We got some accompany friends over here on the sidelines. This is great. Also, today's the first day that we've had this many angles going, so this is fun.
Yeah, it's a good idea, and I like the idea for the space to just
cover this ugly looking
creative director,
friggin'
VFX.
We'll send you kickbacks. Yeah,
VFX.
Seriously though, send me the poster. I'll put the poster there.
Right,
that'll be great. Why make an Indian movie in America?
See. Look at America, right? End of 14th century, there was a treaty that was signed. I mean, obviously, Columbus found America, apparently. I mean, there were people here. Let's not get into that. So what happened was, the guy went back and everyone wanted to claim this land, right? So they thought it was like India or whatever. So now Portugal starts fighting with Spain. And there was a treaty that was signed, the Pope Alexander, if I'm not wrong, Treaty of Tordesillas, whatever, something like, sounds like a pasta, right? The treaty was signed in 1494, where the world was broken into two pieces. So the East and the West. The East belonged to the Portuguese and the West belonged to the Spanish. So that's how, if you really look at it, the whole Spanish espionage happened. And you know what? History is the rest.
Okay, I didn't realize we were going this far back. Let's go.
Right. So now, what happens to the Portuguese guys, right? Vasco da Gama who was a hooligan at the time or whatever. So this guy lands in my neck of the wood, in Kerala. So see the historical importance of that one treaty where they basically said all unclaimed land is yours to keep, that sort of a thing. So Vasco da Gama now ends up in Calicut, which is today Kozhikode, one of the states, right? What he encountered was culture, art, trade, like kingdoms, systems of governance. We pretty much have everything going on. So this guy really didn't have anything else to offer. I mean, he tried with silver bullions or whatever. It didn't really work. So what does he do? He starts an attack. And then,
naturally,
right? And then rest is history, right? So there was like Portuguese, because they had the concept of gunpowder, right? Back in some of those countries, they didn't really have the concept of gunpowder, because war was kind of like fought on horses and like
swords,
whatever.
Maybe,
So when cannons and guns and all this shit came in, they didn't really know what to do. It was not that they were not smart; they didn't have mastery over. So their whole ecosystem was not based on going and attacking other countries and taking over their resource. So naturally, they didn't have the appropriate defense, from a technology standpoint, available. And rest is history.
Okay.
So right after that, now coming back to the question, right? Right after that, what you see was an influx of different cultures, different people, which was already existing in my neck of the wood, right? So right after, Portuguese did what they did, you basically are looking at history where, there was like this huge takeover that happened. And then the British came, that sort of a thing, right?
Yeah.
So if you look at people in my state, right? It's different types of people, right? We have like Christians, and within Christians, there are like different sects, sect of Christianity. And then there's like folks from Arab, Muslims who are like excellent when it comes to like trade or whatnot. So that's how we have this relation going on with the Middle East. And the Christians, when they came in, they introduced like schools. Like I went to a Christian missionary school.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, so it's incredible what you see in India, especially in Kerala, what they've done. Pretty much all of the educational institutions, most of them are owned by Christians, and also with the cultural value that the Hindu system that we have, we give importance to everything. We are like accepting. We basically accept anyone, everyone. So religion was about food, festivals, and like food and festivals, basically. That's what religion would stand for me, right? So what I'm trying to get to is people in my neck of the wood, it's the first United States of America. From all sorts of, like Syria, Middle East, Europe, folks came in and settled down. And you can like still see them, they still marry into their own same community, that sort of a thing. That's still a practice. So they are accepting of anything. Any new ideas, which is why education is important, which is why I made a movie like Checkmate to focus on the American diaspora and present it to folks in India. There's not been a movie like Checkmate that's ever made with the American Indian sensibility. See, I want Checkmate to reflect as a cross-cultural collaboration.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then we want to make like an Indian diaspora within America, in collaboration with Americans, and make more and more projects.
Yeah.
And I was going to say, like, is the movie primarily set in New York, or is it kind of half and half?
No, it's kind of happen half and half. I mean, from a theoretical standpoint, it's in New York, but it's actually shot in Connecticut.
Yeah, right. And you have a few shots like up north, I think, too, right? Because there's like that whole snowy region. Wasn't that up north somewhere?
It was unbelievable what we did in Vermont, right? And you're going to have the laugh of your life. So a bunch of us thinking, okay, let's just go on top of Vermont, go to a mountain and then start filming. So we reached there, and I don't have proper footwear. So there was this friend of mine, Shiva. So one of his colleagues, Tom, and that town in Vermont has like what, 200 people?
Oh, probably. If it's Vermont, man, it's pretty much 200 people.
Unbelievable, right?
Yeah.
So Tom looks at us, looks at me, the lead actress, our director, creative director. Is this what you guys are wearing? I'm like, yeah, we'll be fine. I'm like, okay, I actually have, something you can use.
Yeah.
So he kind of points me, and all of us get like a pair of boots, right? And then we start climbing. unbelievable, man.
Yeah.
And trust me when I say this, I'm not even making it up just to sound cooler. They would have had to call 911.
Yeah.
They would have had to call 911. Like
Yeah.
a bunch of idiots just going on top of Vermont Mountain, me running around, like trying to film, and I can't feel my fingers.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable.
Yeah. Well, seeing the shots, man, I mean, you guys are like trudging through snow. It's not like a casual walk up some,
And
Very-
Shiva, the guy who was playing the cop, wearing that leather jacket, right? He just kept saying, "Oh, I'm okay."
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because he wants to act. He doesn't want to move.
yeah.
He would ask me, "Did you get the shot?"
Yeah.
And we will all basically, like my crew, they'll basically go and hug him.
Yeah.
Right?
Just to like give him
Because
some sort of warmth.
He wanted to look cooler,
Yeah.
right? And he didn't want to like wear something
Yeah,
like,
yeah. You
like
wanna be
big
shaking.
inside because it's gonna mess up with his body shape or whatever, right? Can you believe that? The guy would have died.
Oh my God. That's hilarious.
He,
That is
he
really
went all
funny.
out,
All out.
That's
But,
so funny.
But that is like a interesting concept of like, like it does make sense making a film, here and there, and then in that there is a diaspora of Indian people in America, right? So that's very real. It's an odd thing because I don't know how many pockets of American people there are in India, so it's kind of a unique thing in that, like, because so many people came here and set up like communities here. It's funny because I don't know that I've seen a lot of movies like that kind of depict that, but it does make a lot of sense, because there are people that have been living here for a while, and so there is Indian communities here, and etc. So it's kind of cool to make a film like that,
Which is part of the reason some of the major studios in India right now, they're like consulting with us. Like, how the hell did you guys pull it off?
Yeah.
Because it's kind of tough to do things in America. I mean, obviously, there's a minimum wage you got to respect.
Yeah.
There's a lot of factors. There's like permits, and obviously more than anything, if you come down and take a motel here, right, a motel here, you're looking at paying top dollars. So Indian companies to basically come to America, unless it's like a big studio, it's really tough for them to pull something off in America.
Yeah, man. It's so expensive. America is so expensive compared to a lot of the rest of the world, man.
And
even just
especially when
traveling
you're-
to Italy, I noticed that.
when you're selling the movie primarily in India, so you're getting paid relative to, the pay scale is here or over there, right? It's not American dollars.
Exactly.
So it make it, it's almost in a way like why it's easier for America to have films in other places. Cause again, they're getting paid here based in dollars.
That's the whole basis of outsourcing.
So yeah.
Yeah.
That's the whole source of the whole
That's why
outsourcing.
Temu is
It's
so
not like we don't
blowing
have
up.
American talents in America.
Yeah.
When you
Right.
look at the cost, some of these companies are going to say, oops, let's outsource and make more money.
Yeah,
Right.
100%.
Yeah.
No, it makes
That's
a lot of
all it is.
sense.
That's all it is.
What are the real differences between Bollywood and Mollywood? Because so often in the United States, people will say, "Oh, is this a Bollywood movie?" And it's
So
not.
all
Or
So here's the deal, right? See, Checkmate is not a Bollywood movie. It's not. It's a Mollywood movie, which is primarily in the language Malayalam for people who hail from the state of Kerala in India, right? So what happens is, as I already clearly mentioned, you're looking at different woods in India, so to speak, different
Sure.
industries with respect to linguistic division, right? Language division. So there's like Bollywood, there's Tollywood, there's Collywood, there's Mollywood, there's Marathi, there's Punjabi, there's, like all sorts of different film industry, their own industries backed by the state, that sort of a thing. And they have their censor board too. Now, Bollywood is essentially, Hindi speaking folks who, and I mean, I watch Bollywood movies. I like Bollywood. I don't necessarily agree with what's going on in Bollywood right now,
okay.
but I do watch Bollywood movies. But Bollywood movies comes up with a lot of masala, right? Just like how an Indian curry is, there's a lot of masala, right? You have things like item dance, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say a lot
yeah.
of dancing.
It's very like
Yeah.
specific type of movie. There's going to be some kind of number in it where people
It's
break
to
out.
appease the masses, right?
Right.
So, I mean, at least that's what they think the masses need. I mean, I don't necessarily agree with that whole idea.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if you need to appease the masses, you need to have like fast cars, you need to have like bloodshed, you need to have like there's like a formula. It's
like low
people,
risk,
people sit in a room and say, okay, so what all should we introduce in this movie, right? What's the kind of emotion that we're trying to evoke? right? So once people are in a theater, in a matter of 2.5 hours, they need to basically experience all sorts of emotion. Now, what are those emotions, right? They need to feel scared. They need to feel accomplished. They need to, feel good, and they need to feel romantic. So they kind of like sit together and come up with this whole masala. Okay, now if you need to like get to the sentiments of the remotest of the remotest village, someone who is in the remotest of the remotest village, what is that you can do to them? Right? What is that you can do to them? Because Indians have been killing, politicians and corrupt police officers, like cops for, I don't know, close to 30 years now. Wow. In films. That's kind of like the go-to standard, right?
Nice.
And also tapping into their insecurities, right? Your skin color, your height, weight, your sexual orientation, right? So they kind of like position themselves as these demigods, right? So, okay, this is how you should look like. You should be 6 feet tall.
It's always this huge macho man cop,
right? And if you're a woman, you need to look like this. This is the shape that we expect. And guess what? They also end up, like promoting these products. What does those products do? Oh, you're dark? Oh, you want to be fair? There's a product for that. I don't want to say what product it is. Everyone knows that.
Oh, wow.
So it's kind of like tapping into these insecurities, which is ridiculous if you see. That's not art. That's not what art
It's like a sales pitch. It's
right?
like a billboard.
Pitch.
Yeah.
Right. It's like a sales pitch, like keep tapping into their insecurities, right?
Yeah.
Make them feel like, by the time they're watching the movie, so they kind of like keep looking up to you.
Yeah.
And, kind of like grow your market base on the basis of that, your fan base on the basis of that.
Man, when you told me the RRR guy had fake abs, I was pissed.
Oh, really?
Yeah, those abs are fake, dude.
No way.
He was telling me it's VFX abs. I was
That's
like,
crazy.
That makes sense, dude.
Job,
I did not know that.
He looks a little too jacked.
Well, and because like Bollywood's so big and so popular, it's one of those things where they're like, well, we know this works, so, let's just keep, it's very, once you get something, because it's hard to make something work. And once I see that, like, hey, it's successful, the easiest thing is to like, hey, let's just do what we know is consistent and works. But it kind of puts you guys in an advantageous position in that, because you're, I don't want to say underdogs, but like in a sense, right? You can take more risks because maybe there's no expectation of this, like, hey, if it's not this, then, and maybe somebody's disappointed because they were
Where's your
expecting one
dance
thing.
number?
Yeah,
let me put it this way, right? There's a concept, I'm not talking specifically about films right now. There's a concept of status quo. We all agree, right?
Yeah,
so what is a status quo? Your local politician just keep, like voting for that guy, the cars that you buy, the movies that you see, So if you are okay with the king ruling you and the king's son being your next king, the successor, that is a status quo.
Yeah.
Right? So just keep doing that. Why are you disrupting the society? Why are you disrupting the existing model? Because I'll tell you why. We need to challenge ourselves. We need to challenge ourselves and make better versions of ourselves. Right? I mean, that's really my philosophy talking. When it comes to films, there's a status quo. And I'm telling you that status quo works from a financial ROI perspective, but ROI shouldn't be something that promotes art. Yeah. ROI shouldn't be the criteria for art. So there has to be films like Checkmate, similar movies, which are not driven by, I'm not saying you shouldn't make money off of movies.
Of course, because you have to.
It's an industry, right? Yeah. The industry needs to grow and become a better version of itself. But you shouldn't simply promote and crush other movies just because they don't fall under the status quo.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Well, I think the thing is too, is like some of the business executives don't realize what they might be missing out on if they let a few more, quote, risky-ish movies through. Because they'll be like, oh, they try to tell people what they think they want. But in reality, they might not know what they want until they see it. No one really knew that they were going to, love Reservoir Dogs until it came out.
Exactly.
And then, but like under a lot of, certain guidelines, that might not be what an executive would have thought would have been a good idea.
And this is a plea to some of those executives, right? So they are in a position to make decisions. They are in a position to transform art, which is basically the primary reason they exist. So they need to give that opportunity. They need to have some sort of some sort of system within their company that's going to do this as well. I mean, just don't look at the satisfaction. Also look at the society.
Yeah.
So independent filmmakers need to be promoted. And a company like Netflix and Amazon, they are clearly capable of doing that. So they need to have I don't know, like grants or whatever, which promotes those independent films, and then come up with this parallel concepts, like different verticals. And those films doesn't even have to be millions. You just have to give them an opportunity to have it on their platform.
Yeah, I mean, it happens in a lot of like larger industries. I'm thinking even like with health research, or stuff like that, right? If there's something that's well established and there's a medication for it, they're not going to look into it. You got to give them incentive to spend the money and blah blah blah. But I almost wonder, I feel like maybe I don't know if this, like the fashion industry is one place where they have like counterculture is almost promoted. Like they have these fashion shows where people wear things that are ridiculous or whatever, like you would think is ridiculous, but then it kind of like trickles down into everyday wear, etc. eventually, and they're hosted by just like people who have, designers who've made money in clothes and they like designing clothing. So they maybe express themselves through something like this. I don't know if there is stuff like that for the film industry where it's like...
There's definitely a yearning for new types of content because you hear it all the time. Like people are just kind of sick and tired of like what's coming out.
It's very stale.
It's very stale. There's an occasional movie here and there. But like if you rewind to the 90s into like the early 2000s, there was like movie after movie that was popping off that was just awesome. Like I just watched Rush Hour, the first one, and it's funny. It's funny. It's entertaining. They're not pulling punches. They're saying jokes that are like crazy, and you're like, it's awesome to see them go there and make humor like that. And I don't know. I think we're gonna turn around because I think somewhere in the 2010s, too many executives got a hold of this and they started looking at numbers and they started, doing too many let's test this film in some little groups and see if they think anything offends them or maybe they don't like this type of content. And then they start putting out almost like spreadsheet movies.
It's becoming very like pop music,
Yes, yeah.
Exactly. That's a good point. So these executives, I would say, has that moral obligation or, stop doing philanthropy. Do something like this.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So because this is how you're going to promote real art. Which is on the basis of which you have your business. Your business runs on art. It thrives on art.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
At a minimum, have because maybe of course this is the moneymaker, cool, but at a minimum, put something aside for almost like R&D, right?
Exactly. That's a good point. R&D.
I mean, that's why it's kind of cool to see. It's funny. A24 used to be a little studio, and now they're you see A24, they're making really big films, and it's really cool that they're doing that, but it seems like Blumhouse, A24 are the only ones.
Work.
I don't know if there's we got to do a case study on those guys or something because
it's crazy that they somehow figured it out a way to break into it. I don't know if it's because a lot of them were sort of horror and maybe it's easier. I don't want to say it's easier to break into horror, but maybe companies that want to sponsor them are okay with horror being a little bit more experimental with it. I'm not sure how they did it, but they found their way in. So hopefully more companies like that can find their way into the industry somehow.
Because, again, going back to status quo, when you are basically fed the same thing that you're being fed, you're not going to challenge your existence. You're basically going to keep accepting what it is. And you're not gonna it applies for everything. So if you look at America as a country, America rewards innovation.
Yeah.
So there's no innovation that's going to happen because for you to be innovative, you got to start asking questions. Mm-hmm. Why can't I see a different type of movie? You got to start asking questions like that. I mean, these executives should ask questions like that, and people should ask questions like that. So when they start those questions, okay, now can we try a different methodology? Like you said, R&D. Now using that R&D, a new type of film just came in, and guess what? Now let's just go in this path and do some investments there. I mean, I'm not gonna take a class on how to do their business, but please, I mean.
But I know what you mean. It doesn't even have to be that crazy expensive. We saw this movie Bike Riders this week, and that was a $40 million budget movie. And that was with Tom Hardy and Austin Butler, a few other really great actors too. And I walked out of the theater, and it's not that it wasn't a bad movie, but I wasn't I don't know. I don't know. I was like, okay, it's good. I called it a good, boring movie.
It's very boring.
It was a good, boring movie. Good acting, good cinematography, nothing necessarily wrong with the story. It's just kind of boring. I don't know. It just maybe wasn't for me.
It was like, whatever, based on a true story, but I would say it was like, okay, technically sound, not entertaining.
Yeah, that's a really good way to put it. Like, technically sound, not entertaining. And if they just took $2 million and they gave it to some, notable indie people, they could churn out some really awesome stories because a lot of really cool, creative people.
I would call it a cookie cutter movie.
Yeah, it is.
Right? So that's all it is. Okay, so you need to have all these criteria that are, like I was saying a while back, right? You need to have all these things in place and just make a movie.
Yeah.
Don't worry about the story. Don't worry about anything. Just make a movie.
Yeah.
You just need a movie within four weeks time, right? That's how you do it in product life cycle when it comes to, manufacturing. You can't really do that with films.
I know. This will probably be one of the longest podcasts we've done, which I'm pretty hyped about, man. This has been great.
I'm gonna have fun editing this.
Yeah. It'll be great. See, how can I phrase this
that's
question?
fair. It's true. I mean, we have like Indian, even, Eastern Asian, not South Asian, that are extremely successful here, mostly probably because of the
tech.
In tech and whatnot, because of the, emphasis on education and, working hard, etc. And it is interesting to think like, well, how come there aren't, more film companies that are Indian based, or especially given the population size? I mean, obviously people know about Bollywood, but like you said, like there's like what, 10 or 28 states. So
see, in 1965, the Immigration Nationality Act, right? So after it was passed, Indians were allowed into the country. So with about 2000, the whole tech industry kind of like started flourishing. So there was no, I would say the whole world was looking for technology folks, and America wanted most of it because of the .com boom and, the whole web and HTML, all that stuff, right? So a lot of folks came in. So there was no scarcity in America for people who were making films. And they couldn't find other countries' talent. There was no need for it. There was enough supply in America. So that's how you see a lot of these Indians who came into America and now, started their own companies and now, heading different multinational corporations like Google, Sundar Pichai, Microsoft, Satya Nadella, and, Palo Alto. They're all headed by Indians and a lot more. So from the tech industry, you'll see that not really in films, right? Because obviously Hollywood is still, I would say, number one.
Right.
When it comes to making films all over the world.
Yeah.
But it also kind of makes you think that we're probably headed for some kind of, similar, now that, because there was a huge tech boom, people's lives were changing pretty drastically because of the internet and then cell phones and then the AI thing, but that's kind of happening in parallel. It's less of a focus in that everybody's coming over to work on AI. But because of all the tools, now that people can get access to them and people are living relatively. We got some good technology, I guess is what I should say. It's almost like we're ripe for some kind of film creative renaissance type deal, just because everybody's got access to tools to do it, especially with AI, and it kind of puts a level playing field for people who are independent versus studios. You'd think in the next 5 to 10 years, while people are worried about AI, maybe making their own stuff, also enables a ton of people to do stuff they wouldn't be able to do.
Yeah, I've heard of AI in film actually being more important when it comes to storyboarding, less so replacing the whole act of filming.
No, it's a tool,
it's I'm not good at drawing, but I want to pitch you this movie idea. Here's the story as it is in various frames because I can't draw, but I can type in what I kind of want to see, and this will give a good idea of my storyboard of my movie. So that I can see. It's funny. I heard a quote in regards to AI, are you afraid that AI is going to replace actors in film and all this kind of stuff? And the person, it was actually Bill Burr, who's a comedian, but he's like, hey, just because autotune came out doesn't mean I don't all of a sudden stopped liking people really singing.
Right.
I still love to go see live performances and seeing people who can actually sing. So just because autotune's around doesn't mean all that. So just because AI is going to be around, the need and want or desire to see actual movies made by people with real people in it won't just fizzle out and go away.
So I think the ultimate purpose of AI is essentially to discover talent, not just in films, pretty much anywhere, right? Give everyone the tools that they need at their disposal, just by prompt engineering. Right?
Yeah.
So you basically put prompts and then you create a film, create a whatever. So that means different type of ideas are going to emerge.
Right.
Like how we discussed, right? Like a status quo. Maybe there's a movie concept that we haven't even thought of.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, likely.
You know, like Avatar is a good example. So when Avatar first came in, or Game of Thrones, huge fan, by the way.
Yeah.
You know, Game of Thrones is in the writer's head.
Yeah.
So that thing came out because he had all the options.
Yeah.
He had all the tools at his disposal.
Yeah.
Now, AI, what it's going to do is it's going to enable those people in the remotest of the remotest corner of the world to essentially come up with ideas, not just for films, for technology, for politics, for governance, all sorts of things, art, literature, culture, sports.
Yeah.
They are going to, AI is going to help find and enable those people.
Yeah.
That's what
It's
AI
true.
is going to do.
Yeah, it's going to be really
Can ask
interesting.
the right question.
Right now, it's being used just for like silly memes and making people say
generative AI is
inappropriate
going
things.
to change all of that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
The LLMs, the large language models, it's going to change all of that.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting. I have a feeling there will be a big boom for, just like there's a boom of like deep fakes, there will be a equal and opposite reaction to, oh, but we're the company that can detect all the deep fakes.
Right.
Which is like, that's a huge, you're $1 billion company if you can come up with reliable software that can, you can punch any video in and just be like, nope, this is all fake.
And
You
see,
know?
when it comes to like someone like myself, right? Like my tool is whistling. So if I'm able to whistle, so now that can be converted into like a guitar riff.
Yeah.
I mean, that'd be
violin.
awesome.
Yeah.
It's possible. So I'm kind of like excited to see what's going to change. You know, that evolution is going to happen in that
There
area.
is actually
Possible.
software right now.
Yeah, I did try a lot of them. You know,
They're not very good?
Nah.
Okay, I was gonna say because there's a few where I'm like, oh, you can turn your voice into any instrument.
Right.
But
Oh
okay.
yeah, I've seen that too.
Right. Yeah, I actually, clicked on that Instagram. I was a clickbait.
Yeah, and you try it out, and
Didn't work.
then you get it, and it's like, nah, it's not
Yeah.
that good. Yeah.
So
All right.
that's what AI is gonna do. AI is it's unbelievable, and like you said, the storyboards, like creating drafts. So we used AI a lot. I mean, I work on AI on a daily basis.
Yeah.
So for this project, we pretty much used AI with respect to a lot of things.
Very cool. Well, Ratish, it's been great having you on, man. Before we kind of head out, is there any sort of like last comments or anything you want to say before, like, whether people can, if this is playing somewhere for someone in India right now, where they can go watch the movie, or, what people can expect from you in the future? Any kind of like closing thoughts, anything like that?
Well, I'm an independent filmmaker, doing a movie in America with the Indian sensibility for Indian audience in Kerala, my home state. Right. It took us about a couple of years for, like from inception to final delivery, I would say more than a couple of years. So we're there right now. So we are in theaters right now. Give it a shot. You're going to like the movie. It's a very Hollywood type of movie, Hollywood inspired. So think of Checkmate as a Malayalam movie's footprint for international cinema, right? It will be, because we have taken care of all the technological aspects. However, the movie is done with a very Indian Malayalam sensibility, right? So give it a try. Just watch it. It's not like, I can assure you, you're not going to be like, what type of crazy movie is that? No. You need to get accustomed to concepts, much more complex concepts. Like, you don't want to continue reading storybooks,
Yeah.
children's stories. This is a little bit complicated subject. If you're able to master that, which I'm pretty sure, people from my neck of the wood, they'll be able to understand the whole narrative of Checkmate and the background score, music. So it'll be a good theatrical experience.
Yeah. And I think just personally speaking, it's a fun one to figure out. Like, it's a movie that keeps you guessing, that makes you want to figure out what happens. As opposed to just kind of like sitting there, like spoon feeding you, like, all right, here comes the next plot line. Right into your mouth,
predictive, right? Oh,
Yeah.
I knew the hero was, I knew he's the killer.
Yeah.
You're not going to find that. in
Oh, yeah.
Checkmate. There's no way.
Definitely not.
So when we had our screening in Connecticut and multiple states, the number one thing, the number one feedback, the positive feedback, that got out of us, the first part of the movie is a question and the second part is an answer. Right. So which is why you got to watch the film. Right.
Yeah.
It's not like I'm not trying to like clickbait you into like, doing something. It's true, because the movie is highly non-linear, like Quentin Tarantino style of movie. I'm not saying I'm not saying it's
no, I know what you mean. Dude, it's big inspiration to you.
Right.
Yeah, it's totally fair to say that.
It's an inspiration. That's like my Bible. You know, that sort of a thing, right? So it's gonna keep you guessing. It's gonna just keep you guessing. Okay, what the hell is gonna happen next? Like, why did they cut back and forth? You know, from different narratives. You know, how is it gonna all make sense? It will all make sense at the end.
It does.
That's when you challenge yourself, right? You basically like, it's like a maze that goes on in your head, the audience, because that's what I want. I don't want to like, you know, just like you said, right now, okay, what's gonna happen in the next scene? I told you that's not gonna happen in Checkmate. So it's very different. It's a very different movie from that perspective.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, thanks so much for coming. It was a great time.
Where can people find you on social media? We should do that too.
Oh yeah,
Instagram,
that's a good point.
YouTube, even.
So social media, you know, I post some songs here and there. You know, that's pretty much Ratish Sekhar _ So RATISHSEKHAR _ Or better go to Randy and click on who's following Randy. You'll find me.
Yeah, that's one way to do it. And to follow Checkmate, I think on Facebook and Instagram.
I would say Instagram #Checkmate Movie. Checkmate Movie or Checkmate Movie 2024.
Okay.
You should be able to find us.
Sweet. All right, dude. Well, awesome. It's great having you on.
All right, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course, dude. Thanks so much for listening to Bone Apple Tea. If you like the show, please give us a follow, a like, comment, subscribe, whatever it is. Tell your friends about it. And make sure to follow us on Instagram. That's Bone Apple Tea, BoneAppleTeav on Instagram. Thanks so much.